I have gotten too old to play in the dirt like I used to. But even adults find ways to relieve stress playing in the dirt. I live a mile away from two very fine grocery stores and have not really needed a garden a few steps away to put food on the table. As a matter of fact, since I became cityfied, and based on the cost of city water, I haven't wanted to mess with a garden at all. Our neighbor's kids did raise some tomato plants from seed one year to sell, and Keith bought all of them just to humor them. Turned out every plant survived and produced lots of tomatoes. Bad thing was, it was a dry year and we dumped a lot of city water on them. It did prove the dirt in the yard could sustain growing things besides weeds, but we never pursued it any further. Last year, as I sat on the porch all summer between chemo and radiation treatments, I actually thought a lot of those good old days when we planted the family garden. Not that we cook at home with our crazy schedules, but I seem to remember the good things about seeing things grow and the satisfaction that you made it yourself.
Why'd you come out here?
Well, because all my life I wanted to be a farmer. I wanted to get away from the rat race of the city. Come out and breathe the fresh air. Live in the sunshine. Plant the little seeds in the rich brown earth. Watch them push themselves up through the soil, reaching up toward the blue sky and the sunshine till they become corn and wheat and alfalfa.
It's a nice speech.
Did you like the fife?
How's that?
She always thinks she hears a fight. What I'm trying to say is that I love growing things.
Yes, even when we lived in Park Avenue in a penthouse, he had a Potts farm.
A Potts farm?
Well, I grew corn in flower pots.
I watched the garden across the street bloom and grow, and I became a bit nostalgic seeing them pick the crops from the vines. Not to mention they posted pictures of fresh dishes they made with ingredients from the yard on Facebook. In the springtime, Dad would plow and disc the little area next to the house in preparation for planting the garden to grow vegetables for the family. Dad would also prepare the land next door at my grandparents' house where even more vegetables would be grown. After the tractor had prepared the land, I found it was really easy to build roads for my toy trucks to travel on. I built many roads and soon learned how to build bridges and overpasses, just like the ones I'd seen on family vacations to the mountains and to the ocean. Each day I added to my road system and began building a small town with boards and bricks I found around the farm. You could always find me playing in the dirt. Even when it was raining, I was adding drainage canals and kept the water from flooding my city. As I got a little older, I was expected to help plant seeds instead of playing in the dirt. I began to question why we needed so many rows of vegetables when there are stores with these things in cans. You open it up, heat, and serve. Mom and my grandparents always replied because homegrown is better. I now know that is true. So many genetically modified this and that on the shelves, and I can't argue that cancer rates were lower or non-existent in my grandparents' time. Even when using real fat meat to season them, they didn't have the same medical issues we have today. Not to mention their home cooking was the real deal. Fresh is best. Some items around the farm were used once a year and carefully stored for the next season. Things like tobacco sticks were not toys and were carefully stored and counted. But peepholes, or poles made from small trees about 2 to 3 inches in diameter, used to harvest peanuts in the fall, got double duty in the summer garden. Before mechanical harvesters, peanut vines were dug up by hand and stacked around a peephole to allow them to dry, a little before the peanuts were picked off the vines and looked like little haystacks in the field. About every 10 feet, a hole was dug with a special auger and the pole was set in the garden. A nail was driven about a foot above the row and another about 5 feet high. A piece of wire was attached to the nails between the poles and ran the full length of the row, at the top and the bottom. Then a string was woven from the top wire to the bottom wire in a W pattern, the full length of the row. It really looked like a suspension bridge. As the vines grew, Mom would carefully weave each one on the string so the beans would grow up and hang once they filled out the pods. Several times a week, Mom would go down the row and pick the filled pods into a pan, take them home, shell the beans, wash them, and either cook them for the evening meal or prepare them for freezing. One year we didn't have enough poles for the seemingly acres of butter beans Mom had planted, so she decided I could help cut some new poles to finish off the garden while Dad was at work. Out to the woods we go and chop down a suitable tree with an axe no less. Neither of us knew how long a bean pole should be, so I lay down next to the pole and Mom marked where to cut off the top, adding a few inches to allow it to be buried in the ground. We repeated that process and finally had enough poles to finish the row. I'm not sure how we did it, but our poles were either a good 3 feet taller than the others or a little bit shorter. Our measurements were not exactly consistent from pole to pole, but they did the job. Still, I could never understand why butter beans were so important. I guess Mom would have starved to death if it wasn't for those beans. Beans. Living on a farm does have some advantages and some disadvantages. A garden takes a lot of work to keep up, but it produces fresh food the family can eat all year long. That can be a good thing or a bad thing. Truth is, as a kid I liked most vegetables from the garden, although I wasn't fond of tomatoes or okra, but everything else was fine with me. It seems some were the main course, like collards and cabbage, long before we ever knew the term soul food. Sometimes Mom would combine two vegetables, and a favorite combo she called caps and snabbages. Actually, it was cabbage with snap beans boiled together. I always giggled at the name, but it sure was good. Then there were butter beans. During the summer, these things produce pods every week that must be picked off the vine, shelled, and consumed. The excess were blanched and put in bags to be frozen for use during the winter. It was really a vicious cycle for me. Fresh butter beans tonight means leftover butter beans tomorrow for lunch and again at dinner. They never ended. The year round, there was plentiful supply of butter beans. Every single night. Well, like anything, if you overindulge in something, you grow tired of it and no longer want it. I can tell you, butter beans got tiresome very quickly for me that winter. Very quickly, and to the point of, no thank you, I've had enough. Suffering succotash, even mixed with corn, couldn't help them. Our neighbor Barbara Jean suggested putting ketchup on them, and I can say that did help, but why force eat something you're tired of and don't want? They suggested pepper, and it did help as well, but still, it's butter beans. What's the point? There's plenty other food on the table, so I won't starve if I forgo the butter beans. So let them stay in the bowl. Does not hurt my feelings to reach over them. I guess it did hurt Mom's feelings a little, though. She was an excellent cook and took pride in everything she placed on the table. So I'm sure she was a little upset that I didn't like something she prepared. It did become a running joke, even to this day, when there's butter beans on the table to ask me, "Are you sure you don't want some delicious butter beans?" Yeah, I'm sure. Eventually, I got over it and would eat a few just to make Mom happy, but no more than a small spoonful. Even today, I have ordered them in the restaurant and make everyone at the table swear they wouldn't tell my mom I ate butter beans. I'll eat them now, but I can assure you I won't be planting any in my garden this year. Well, that's it for now from the Old Man on the Porch. Leave a comment about your gardening experiences, and we'll talk again later.